Successful people of Reddit, what was the lowest point in your life, and how did you bounce back? Whoever is suffering out there, never give up. Decided to post my story. Grew up in Africa, life was so tough. During high school I became sick, wasn't even able to finish my finals. Had a shitty father, was very violent and wasn't there for us financially. He ended up taking a loan behind our back, and our house is about to be taken. But the issue is still in court. Sickness got worse, lost my ability to walk. Attempted suicide by overdosing but didn't work. My mother became diagnosed with depression, and had to take a leave from her teaching job. Her depression affected her. She even attempted suicide. My sickness and pain got so bad, almost died once at the My mother couldn't take it anymore, and wanted to go back to her home, but she didn't wanna leave me behind, so she decided to stay with my father. Basic stuff like getting food to eat became a challenge. Life had no meaning at all. I started a business from home. It's been growing a bit, and I'm able to pay my family's bills now. Still can't walk, but the physio is making me improve day by day thanks to God. Once lay in a bathtub with a knife to my chest for roughly a half hour. Didn't do it, because I didn't want the people I love to find me that way. It would hurt them, and that would suck. Bounced back by keeping busy, and using a few tactics I read about to get out of those situations. Tried meditating, still do once in a while, though I'd limits it somewhat. I drink tea, stared at candles, listened to relaxing music, and so forth. I tried to get more hobbies, which was very successful. Now I have too many. I also tried to reword my thoughts, to make things seem easier. I remember reading that people that seem to have high willpower actually don't. To their own minds they aren't pushing through tons of stressful events. They are minimizing those events and easy and/or seeing them as fun. I also read that people that are stress durable tend to see things as challenges rather than problems. And I'm a true believer that the world is generally good intentioned, even when it's stupid. I stumbled upon a few games that helped me with this sort of thinking as well. Dwarf Fortress is known for having a high learning curve, with a motto and culture embracing everything that can and does go wrong in a fort, leading, of course, to great stories and horrible deaths. There are still of course stressful things in my life, and I wouldn't say that I'm always happy. I don't get enough sleep, I don't exercise like I know should, I don't garden like I think I should. But I'm doing alright, and other people seem to have this impression of me, that I'm happier than I think I am. So who knows, maybe I am. Was homeless and would sometimes go through dumpsters on a college campus because, especially on the weekends, plenty of good food would go to waste. Found a bottle of pina colada mix. It was hot out. I was thirsty, decided to drink it. Turns out it was not just pina colada mix. There was alcohol in there. A goodly amount. I hadn't eaten yet that day, and so, within a few minutes, after taking a couple of swigs, I was pretty tipsy. At 6:30 AM. I remember sitting in a park a few hours later just realizing that this was as low as it gets. I had been kicked out of the house by my mother, lost a basketball scholarship due to shit grades, and now I'm wandering around a town I had just moved to, with no money, just sort of hoping I'd be hit by a car or something, and then maybe I wouldn't have to deal anymore. I wish I could tell you I had some aha moment, but I didn't. There was no epiphany, no sudden clarity, no motivational speech, nothing like that. I just decided that, at 19, my story wasn't over, and if I started then and there maybe my ending would be different. I ended up getting a job at a gym. Got back into shape over the next year, got another scholarship to a tiny school about 1,000 miles away. Went there and got straight A's but got injured. By that time though my grades were good enough to come back and go to the state school in the town I had been homeless in. I graduated with honors, went to law school. 12 years after accidentally getting drunk out of dumpster drink mix, I'm a partner at a law firm, own a home, own a car, have a fiance, and practice class action law. No one except my fiance and the dude who is going to be the best man in my wedding have any idea about how low I was. Most of my family doesn't even know, because I was estranged from them all at the time. Anyone looking for advice about how to turn your life around, let me give you this piece of wisdom. Persistence and letting go are the keys. Not hard work. Persistence is something different. Persistence is that borderline delusional quality that believes you deserve anything you are willing to work for to earn. Letting go is letting go of how something comes to pass. For example, I moved 1,000 miles to take another basketball scholarship. It definitely wasn't what I imagined, but it was a great opportunity, and it worked out for me. Don't turn down a great opportunity just because it isn't exactly what you imagined. Just work towards what you want and let go of how it happens. 7 years ago, when I was 25, I moved from Canada to Europe to try something new. I had a job lined up that didn't end up happening, and as my experience and education was foreign, and as I did not speak the local language well, I had gotten a factory job as living off of very limited savings wasn't a good idea. 1/2 a year into the job I couldn't stand it anymore and quit. I aggressively applied for various job agencies for all levels of work and was directly ignored as an immigrant. Interesting feeling to be on that side. I reached a point where I had $700 of cash available and could choose to buy a ticket home or to take the risk and try one more month and see what I could do. Limited risk as I would have had to go ask my parents to help me get home, but admit I failed. I choose to stay, paid my $500 in rent for the month, bought a jar of Nutella and a lot of bread and continued searching. 1 week later I met a girl who I started dating, eventually to get engaged with and now married. 2 weeks later I spent a lot of time at her place. She lived in a different city 1-hour train ride away and was busy solicitation for work there. On the 3rd week I had my first positive response from a job for the entire 6 months I had been living there. On the 4th week I had an interview and they didn't hire me for the position they advertised, but the position that supervised that work. Over the next year I had 2 to 3 promotions and then had a meeting with the CEO to lead a new startup he was starting. Lead that until its acquisition by a multi-billion euro German company. The success isn't the career or wealth, it's the confidence and security in myself. I took what for me was a large risk, and it paid off. My brother died. He was only 27, married for just over 2 years, with twin baby girls. He was killed in action. He was my best friend from the day he was born, and it was totally devastating for everyone who knew and loved him. I spent that summer basically alternating between lying in bed staring at the ceiling, or lying in bed sobbing. The few times I went home again after the funeral I'd drive around our hometown crying hysterically. I thought it was aimless, but it occurred to me I was looking for him in any place I remembered him being. I even drove around and around the church we attended as kids and I haven't set foot in since I was 15. Then I got a prescription for Xanax and that let me lie there and just not give a shit about anything. I found some old painkillers and I'd experiment with 1 Oxy and 2 Xanax. Sometimes half an Ambien. I'd get that painkiller high where it's actually somewhat of a struggle to breathe, but you don't care because opiates are fucking boss. And I'd lie there and think, if this is it at least I'll see him again. At the time I was working as a sub and finishing requirements for my actual teaching license. The principal of the school I worked at called me and offered me a long-term sub job for the entire school year. I was on my game at school, but I'd still go home and pill it up. I'd keep it together in front of the kids, but one day a kid's phone went off in class and the ringtone was, "If you're reading this, what fucking 7th grader has that?" And I cried in front of my students. I told them why I was upset, and they were sympathetic and really human to me about it. So teaching an unfamiliar subject was getting harder and I started to get really attached to my students. And this might sound cheesy, but those little fuckers, I mean that with affection, literally saved my life. Realizing I had to be there for them, be prepared for them, and be the best I could be for them, and because I was responsible for them really picked me up. It gave me something to focus on besides my grief, and turned me into someone my brother would be proud of. It's fair to say he would have been disgusted at what I let happen. And now I fucking love my job, and I'm so lucky to get a paycheck for doing something I love. I hid a lot of this Xanax cocktail stuff from my husband, so it's not like he didn't care, he didn't know. He was there for me as much as he could be, as much as I'd let him be. I had worked very hard for 5 years to get into medical school, and I had been waitlisted at every school I had interviewed at. It's hard to express how hard I had worked and how emotionally invested I was in the field of medicine. Worse, when I asked why I was waitlisted, there wasn't anything wrong with my resume, application, or interview. There were just a lot of qualified applicants. I had been renting a tiny shitty room in a neighborhood where I didn't feel safe in order to afford the application fees / interview / traveling. I didn't have a backup plan to medical school, and I felt like I had done everything necessary to make myself qualified, and it was just never going to happen. It had been a very stressful year full of disappointment and feelings of inadequacy. There were a lot of nights filled with wine and ugly crying. I would be waitlisted up until the day classes started, but I couldn't wait that long to move on with plan B, so I set a date. On that date I would proceed, as if medical school was not going to happen that year, and go full steam ahead with plan B for the next year. Luckily, my job was happy to have me for another year, so when that day came and went with no acceptance, I started apartment hunting. I focused on making the next year in that city a happier one than the year before. I found a nice apartment in a safe neighborhood, and signed a lease. I started developing a new skill at work, and received a raise. I started making plans for a plot in a community garden. I knew that I was going to circle back around to medical school applications eventually, but I needed to move on for a year or two. I needed a break from the emotional drain of being rejected. After I had moved on, I got in off a waitlist. I gave my 2 weeks, threw everything I owned into my tiny car, and drove across the country to start medical school. Success grows on trees. Half of you are stuck looking for those seeds. A small percentage have the seeds, but won't plant them, because they are afraid of failure. And yet another small percentage planted and failed. And that's it. The rest are either lucky, or planting another batch of seeds. Unless you were born with a bunch of trees, you have to work at it. Be passionate about what it is that you want to do. Because passion is what's going to pick you up when you fall. Not me. Bitch, I don't even know you. Going down. Age 18, went to college, got broken up with, gained 50 pounds, became alcohol dependent. I got good grades, but I lost myself entirely. Age 19, convinced my parents to let me move 3,000 miles away, developed an eating disorder, did poorly in my new college classes, got diagnosed with anxiety / depression. Going up. Age 20, got accepted to a better college, lost the weight, had a cool boyfriend. Age 21, broke up with boyfriend, but it was all good. Started getting better grades. Started dating a new guy. Figured out the perfect medication for anxiety / depression. Ran a marathon. Age 22, graduated college cum laude, landed my dream job, in love with my boyfriend on many levels. I can see myself marrying this man, advancing in my company, and getting my body into the best shape of my life all within the next 2 years. I went from suicidal in college to living out my dream. I had major depression. I had suicidal thoughts almost constantly. I tried to kill myself multiple times. I was in a psych ward several times, for over 2 months during the longest stay. Therapy didn't help, ECT didn't help, antidepressants didn't help, TMS didn't help. But my parents heard about a new way to cure depression involving cerebrospinal fluid analysis. So I got a spinal tap, got the results back, started supplements to replace what my body can't produce, and my suicidal thoughts were gone in 3 weeks. If you want to know more, ask me anything here. Well, I'm not even in the final form of my life, but here I go. Be me. Age 16. I'm a legal immigrant. Halfway through high school. No means of getting a job as I have no work permit, social security. DACA is all of a sudden passed, and really helps my situation. Work at a local flea market, and save $500 to apply, and $1K for lawyer to look over it, and ship my application. Scumbag, I know. Months go by, and I get a weight lifted from my shoulders upon approval. Get a shitty job at Sonic working full time while an HS. Graduate high school. Woot, first in my whole ancestral family. Quit Sonic and go into asphalt industry repairing roads and whatnot. Paid $12 an hour, /60 to 70 hours per week. Bought a car. Got my driver's license test the 17th of August. slowly grinding monas to put myself in a community college for 2 years to get my cause out of the way, then transfer to CSU or perhaps move to Germany, learn the language, and attend school for free because school shouldn't cost so much in America. It's the plan so far. Let's see what life and the American government throws my way with the whole immigration system. Showed up to my last semester for college and was told that my loan company had stopped paying for my tuition. Cosigner's credit wasn't good enough, so I had to drop. Moved back in with my parents and started working an overpass job. During this time my girlfriend of almost 5 years decided she was going to sleep with my best friend of 8+ years. Caught him cheating on his girlfriend and lying to mine about everything. Both girls still chose to try to be with him. After I realized that everything I knew and loved was gone, I found myself in the middle of a busy road wearing all black clothes, hoping a car would just hit me. While I was standing in the road, a female friend of mine called. Her and her boyfriend were having a petty argument and she needed someone to talk to. It wasn't anything super earth-shaking, but it got me out of the road. 5 years later it took a good support network with new friends, enlisting in the military, and moving away from everything to get myself back together. I feel like I've made it now, but when I look back, I'm really glad there were no cars that night. My dad committed suicide. I found him hanging in my doorway. My mom saw him 10 seconds later. The look on her face when she saw him. 2 years later and today I'm better. Time, as cliche as it is, doesn't heal but does take some of the sting out of it. I finally started working out again. I've been buying a lot of stuff, and I've gotten closer with my mom. All these things make me feel better. I've failed classes, been dealing with depression on my own, and have trouble getting close to girls. But I don't cry all day anymore when I'm alone. I don't have a constant feeling like the light in my world is fading out. I don't think about suicide 24/7 anymore. I'm okay. Not great, not awful, but okay. And honestly, that's the best I could ask for.